Alright, let's do a little experiment. Close your eyes and picture the biggest problem in your life right now. Got it? Good. Now what if I told you that faith could make that problem disappear? Stick with me, and I'm about to share a story that might just change your mind. Hey everyone, it's time to meet John. Picture this guy. He's sleeping on a park bench, hasn't showered in weeks. Yeah, it's pretty rough. But John's got a story, and it's a doozy. John used to have it all. A good job and a nice family. But then, addiction came knocking and it took everything away. All the good things in his life just vanished. So there's John, waking up on that bench, and he realizes something scary. He can't remember the last time he felt hope. It's like a light inside him went out. John's walking down the street, thinking about his next hit. That's when he bumps into this street preacher. The preacher starts talking about faith moving mountains, and John almost laughs in his face. But something makes John stop and listen. Maybe it's desperation, maybe it's curiosity, or maybe he's just got nowhere else to be. Whatever it is, John finds himself actually paying attention. The preacher must have seen something in John, because he pulls out this little Bible and hands it over. John takes it, thinking he can probably sell it for drug money, but that's not how it goes down. That night, John's feeling pretty low. He pulls out that little Bible, probably to check how much it's worth, but then he opens it. And just like that, John's journey begins. I'm not saying everything magically got better. It wasn't some miracle where all John's problems disappeared. But it was a start, a tiny start that would grow into something big. So there's John, a guy who's hit rock bottom, reading a Bible on a park bench. It's not much, but it's something. And sometimes that something is all you need to get things moving. Okay, let's talk about John and that little Bible on the park bench. It's about to take him on a wild ride. But here's the thing. John doesn't believe a word of it, at least not at first. So what keeps him turning those pages? Well, John's bored, and some of these stories are pretty interesting. So there he is, day after day, reading this book he doesn't believe in. Then one day, he reads about Jesus healing a leper. John's not a leper, but he's tired of his life. He thinks, man, I wish someone could heal me like that. That's when something shifts. John's not buying into the faith stuff yet, but he's wondering, what if it's real? What if it could change things for him? It's a crazy thought, but hey, stranger things have happened. So John tries something new. He prays, just a little. At first he feels silly. He's talking to thin air. But he keeps going. And as he does, something weird happens. There's a tiny change inside him. A little spark of hope starts to flicker. Experts say hope can really help with addiction recovery. People who stay hopeful do better in the long run. And that's what's happening to John. As he keeps praying and reading, that spark of hope grows. It's small, but it's there. That's huge for a guy who couldn't remember what hope felt like. John's learning something cool. Faith doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It can start tiny, like a mustard seed. But even that little bit can change how you see things. So there's John, still on his bench, still struggling. But now he's got this little seed of faith growing inside him. Who knows? Maybe it'll grow into something bigger. Stick around. John's story is just getting started. Alright, let's talk about John's big leap of faith. You won't believe where this takes him. John's still out there fighting his addiction, but now he's got this tiny spark of hope inside him. And get this, it's enough to make him do something pretty bold. He walks right into a rehab center and asks for help. Picture John at the rehab center door. He's scared, but he takes a deep breath and goes in. Surprise! They have a bed for him. It's like the universe is cheering him on. Rehab's no walk in the park. Some days John wants to quit and go back to his old life. It's really hard. But he keeps praying and pushing through. even when it seems hopeless. Here's where it gets good. John starts changing. He's stronger. His mind's clearer. It's like waking up from a long nightmare. As he keeps at it, he starts believing in himself more. He's setting goals and actually reaching them, some for the first time ever. John's not alone in this. He's making friends in rehab, building a support system. Fun fact, people in support groups are 50% more likely to stay sober long term. Pretty cool, right? John's learning a big lesson. Faith isn't just believing in something invisible. It's about doing something even when you're scared. It's choosing the hard but right path even when you want to give up. So there's John, taking it day by day. He's still got a long way to go, but he's moving forward, one step and one prayer at a time. This could be the start of something great for John. John's out of rehab and sober now, which is huge, but he's facing a tough challenge. All those broken relationships. It's like looking at a pile of broken glass, wondering how to put it back together. His family doesn't trust him, and his old friends are still using. John feels alone, like he's on an island with everyone else, just out of reach, on the mainland. Then John remembers something from that little Bible about forgiveness. He thinks, maybe I should try this. It's scary, but what's he got to lose? He starts with his mom. John picks up the phone, his hand shaking. He's sure she'll hang up right away, but she doesn't. She listens. John apologizes for everything. He's not expecting forgiveness. Why would she after all he's done? But then something amazing happens. His mom starts crying. She tells John something that floors him. She's been praying for him every day. Can you believe it? John thought he was alone, but his mom was right there with him the whole time. It's hard, but John starts rebuilding his relationships. It's like laying bricks one by one to build bridges back to people. Some days it feels impossible, but his growing faith keeps him going. There's some cool science behind this too. Forgiveness can actually help with anxiety, depression, and stress. Plus, having family support makes a big difference in staying sober. John's fixing his brain and his relationships at the same time. As John keeps at it, he starts to see changes. It's slow, but it's happening. He's learning that faith isn't just personal, it's about healing relationships too. His faith is changing him and spreading to others. So, John's working on those relationships every day. It's not easy, but he's not quitting. Maybe those broken bridges will end up stronger than before. Stick around, because John's story isn't over yet. You know that feeling when it seems like every chance is slipping away? That's where John is. He's sober and making up for past mistakes, but finding a job feels impossible. Can faith really help him, or is John about to hit a wall? John's clean and fixing things with his family, but he needs work, and his history isn't doing him any favors. He's filling out applications left and right, but all he gets are rejections. It's hard. John's faith, that tiny spark he's been nurturing, starts to dim. He's asking God, what's the deal? I'm trying, but nothing's happening. Some days, he wants to quit. Then something weird happens. John meets a guy who runs a construction company. The guy gives him a shot. It's not fancy. Tough work, low pay, but it's a start. John takes it. Why not, right? So there he is, lifting bricks, sweating buckets. It's rough, but he prays each morning to get through the day. And you know what? It works. Months pass. John's still at it, working like crazy. Then his boss calls him in. John thinks, uh-oh, but instead of bad news, he gets a promotion. His boss says he's never seen anyone work so hard. It's pretty amazing. Most employers don't want to hire people with addiction histories, but John made it. And here's the kicker. Having a job really helps people stay sober. Only 15% of people with jobs relapse. compared to 50% of those without work. John's realizing faith isn't magic that fixes everything. It's more like a backup battery for when things get tough. It might not give you what you want, but it helps you keep going. So there's John, promoted, seeing that faith works in strange ways. It's about finding strength when things look hopeless. And maybe that strength is the real miracle. Here's John's story. Life was great for him. Good job, loving family, strong faith. Then suddenly, his mom gets really sick. The doctors don't look hopeful, and John's world crumbles. This is when it gets tough. John feels that old urge coming back. He thinks about his old neighborhood, where he used to get drugs. Before he knows it, he's driving there, hands shaking on the wheel. Just as he's about to make the last turn, something stops him. He sees flashes of his life now, his job, family, and faith. Is he really going to throw it all away? John pulls over, his heart racing. He does something he hasn't done in a while. He prays, really prays. He's begging for help to get through this moment. And you know what? Something amazing happens. As John sits there, a feeling of peace comes over him. It's like a warm blanket on a cold night. He takes a deep breath, and for the first time since hearing about his mom, he feels like he can handle this. John turns the car around and goes home. It's not easy, but he knows it's right. He's learned something big. Faith is there for you when things are darkest, giving you strength when you need it most. People in recovery have a 40 to 60% chance of relapse. But John beat those odds. He found strength in his faith when he needed it most. So there's John driving home, realizing that faith isn't just believing, it's about making tough choices, even when you want to give up. And for John, that's a miracle worth holding on to. John's mom gets better, and it's like a huge weight lifts off his shoulders. His faith helped him through the toughest time, and now he wants to give back. He starts volunteering at the rehab center where he got clean. It's weird being back, but in a good way. He's on the other side now, helping people find hope like he did. John tells his story to the addicts there. Some laugh, some cry, some ignore him, but a few really listen. They see John as what they could be, a bit of hope. That's when John realizes all his hard times were for this. He starts a support group for addicts looking into faith. At first it's just a few people, but it grows way bigger than he thought it would. John went from sleeping on park benches to helping others find their way. It seems crazy, but he's proof it can happen. There's this thing called post-traumatic growth. It's exactly what John went through, coming out stronger after tough times. Research shows that people who've been there themselves can really help others recover. John's seeing that faith isn't just about changing himself. It's about using what he's been through to help others too. It's like a ripple effect, with one person's faith touching lots of lives. So there's John, running his group, sharing his story, and watching others start to change. He's not perfect, and life's still hard sometimes, but he's got his faith, and he's using it to make a difference. For John, that's the biggest miracle of all. Here's the final version. We followed John's incredible journey from tough times on a park bench to becoming an inspiration for others. It's truly amazing. John's story shows the power of faith when facing big challenges, but it's not about waiting for things to happen. It's about finding that spark of hope inside and using it to make a change. The main lesson? John proves that no matter how hard things get, there's always a way forward. You have that same strength inside you. Use it to tackle whatever's holding you back. Big changes start with small steps. So take that first step today. Stay blessed by the best.